I'm seeing when it's rolling. It seems it's rolling
Mhm.
here as well. Okay, we are ready to rock and roll. Let's go. Um, oh, okay. So, hello guys, welcome to the second episode of Freedom Podcast. Today, I have here the pleasure to have with me and the honor Dr. Lucas Dixon, graduated with a PhD in social and consumer psychology from the UK Business School in 2023. He investigates the psychology of the success industry, including the marketing and consumption of small business and solopreneur business education. He also investigates the psychology factors that contribute to participating in multi level marketing and get rich quick schemes. Having run his own small business, Lucas aims to reduce fraud, misleading marketing, and improve offering in this space. He published the research in personality and social psychology Bulletin, the Journal of Consumer Affairs, Cognitive Behaviour Therapy, and non-profit and voluntary sector quarterly. His evolving research specialties include quantitative survey design, psychological scale design, multivariate and multivariable regression modeling, text analysis, systematic reviews, and meta analysis. More generally, is psychological research interested in understanding the benefits and limitations of positive thinking, including and where positive thinking may be helpful or perhaps even harmful, which is his current interest in on this research at the moment, which is very interesting because it touch a lot on the topic that we are going to talk about today, which is the this power of manifestation or this thinking in manifestation. If I feel or if I am in tune with the energy, I will got what I want, which is really interesting. So I'm glad to have you here, Lucas. Thank you so much.
Pleasure to be here, John, and looking forward to it.
Nice. Okay. I have some experiences with multi-level marketing in a sense that I got invited to some parties, and I don't know how you got into this niche of multi-level marketing, but I got because they reached out to me several times or several of their people that work in these companies, and I was on one physical event besides the online events. And the physical events, they are really persuasive, Lucas. They are really
Mm.
persuasive. Like they put me in the state, me and some more people that were like there uh, randomly, in the sense that I will tell you how I got into there. I saw an
Mm.
ad on Instagram of event of personal development, which is a topic I am interested on, and I wanted to know more about it. And it seems to me interesting. They got some people that I like that I would like to hear from. You know, people that they hired as well from outside. So there I
Mm.
am. I'm going, and I notice that almost all of the people that are there are already from the school, from the multi-level marketing company, which they call a school, and only a few of us were actually there because they got interested onto it, and we didn't even pay. They were presenting and advertising on social media saying personal development, I have some free tickets for you because it's already sold out, you know. Really interesting. So so
Wow.
yeah. So what they have done, they were putting like some people that got upgraded into platinum and or into these new levels, and they were really celebrating and making us feel really uncomfortable if we didn't celebrate the success of those people that we didn't know, and like what the hell is happening. So like kind of
Mm.
making you feeling uncomfortable if you didn't participated on those rituals, making you feel that you are outside of that if you are not doing the crazy stuff that they are doing. For example, jumping and let's go and make some money,
Mm.
and etc. etc. So yeah, I saw a lot of neuro programmalistic
Yeah,
language
look, I
there.
mean, what you're describing there is exactly what I've found as well, and
Ah.
I think it mirrors a lot of the the need or want to grow and change and be something, make something of ourselves, And multi-level marketing is always linked to that, with the idea of owning your own business and walking your own path. But as you've already experienced, there's a
Yes.
lot of sort of social pressure there, and it can be very persuasive, but also gets you in such a state that when you think about running a business or making financial decisions, perhaps being in that really G'd up state is not always the best way to be making financial decisions. And they don't really have that approach. Their belief is that it's about faith, and it's about maintaining that positive mindset at all costs. So it kind of links a lot into what we're going to talk about, I think, today, and some of the
Yes.
research I've been doing. So yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely, and you're right. It is really some social pressure there that makes you feel, makes you more prone to take some decisions that probably wouldn't take in a normal state, like you were saying. Okay, so
Mm,
just for some people that before we delve a little bit more onto those topics,
mm.
can you just describe a little bit what is in a simple and fast way? What is the multi-level marketing for those who don't know? Just a simple one.
Sure. Well, the companies like that we may know around the world, like Amway, or there's a lot of documentaries at the moment,
Mm.
like on Netflix, like Herbalife and
Ah,
LuLaRoe.
yeah.
These companies are multi-level marketing companies. The idea is that it's a marketing strategy, but also a business model. So the idea is that a company will recruit unpaid workers to sell their products for them. They get a bit of a discount on that product, but then they sort of will make a commission off the sale of those products. But the thing that makes it multi-level is that you can, as a marketer or a seller of these products, you use them yourself, you sell them to others, but then you can also sell others the business opportunity. So the opportunity to join as a seller in your team. But the idea is that it looks a lot like a pyramid. You can then, and of course, the multi-level marketing companies will say it's not a pyramid, but it is the idea that you can grow your team exponentially as each of those people that you recruit others underneath you. And the idea is it's meant to, I think, give us the sense that that's an endless chain of people. We could actually grow this big business where we're getting a commission off all the people underneath us. In reality, it doesn't often work like that. There's a couple of economic reasons why it doesn't, but also there are a few successful people, exactly like you just described, up the top of that pyramid, that really do well in those organizations, especially at the beginning of a new one,
Yes.
and as they recruit everyone underneath them. But the people down the bottom uh, often are the ones that find and struggle to make money, as you look around and you realize everyone around you is in the multi-level marketing company, and you've run out of people to sell to, or to recruit, or perhaps people aren't, maybe the product isn't as competitive as you think that it is, or
Yeah.
it's not so, people can just go to the shops and buy the same product, so it's hard to make money out of selling the products. But then the pressure becomes on you to then recruit people, even though legally they're not allowed to say that that's what you're doing. A lot of
Mm.
the stuff that happens once you're in it is that you end up trying to recruit people to with the dream of having this big downline of people, that you are kind of the leader of this big team that is making money. You're making money in your sleep, passive income.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll buy your luxurious boat.
That's right. Yeah. And it's only, you only have to spend these few years working really hard, and, believing in yourself. And then eventually you'll get that boat. But unfortunately for most people, in fact, at least 95% of people in a lot of these organizations never make any money. So, um, yeah, and there's various different reasons for that, but that's basically multi-level marketing. It's not impossible to make money, and you can certainly enjoy the products yourself and be a fan of the products, and share them with your friends, as they'll often say that it's more sharing than selling. But
Yeah.
if you, I think the problem with multi-level marketing is more if you think that that's going to become your way to get rich, and it's more of a side gig, I think. And maybe even for a lot of people, the personal development aspect
Mm-hmm.
is actually the thing that they get the most out of. I have a family member who is close to me who was in Amway years and years ago, didn't make any money from it,
Mm.
but sort of was introduced to a lot of these personal development gurus that they enjoyed. And so I think that's another thing that keeps people in these organizations, a chance to do that personal development. So
Oh,
yeah.
oh yeah, that's a personal development. When I got into my physical event, it was the thing that attracted me the most.
Mm,
It was
mm,
their gurus or their people that showed some little bit of the knowledge that I found it as correct, and they told like if you want to know more and learn more from more people, from more teachers, you can enter. You know, it's a little bit to think for me at least to think it as a side gig because I don't know the companies you study or look into it, but the mines I had like to pay huge money like just to be in it monthly. It was like here it will be a huge amount of money to enter, like something around in like 1,000 euros or around those numbers, and then a monthly fee just to keep up with the fee. You will
mm.
have to work a lot.
That's really bad. I mean, that's a classic sign of where it does become a bit of a pyramid scheme. The
Mm,
idea is that the illegal kind of pyramid scheme is that you're really recruiting people and making money out of that recruitment and that personal development, rather than the sale of the product themselves. Now, depending where you are in the world, it depends probably on the laws, but I
mm,
know definitely in Australia, where I am, and in America, the laws are fairly similar in that you have to have a genuine product that you're selling. But the problem is that when it comes to personal development and education, if that's the thing you're selling, that can be quite what's the word, intangible. Can't
uh-huh,
grab onto it. It's not a physical thing.
uh-huh,
So the quality can vary a lot, and the perceived value that people might put on that education means that they can charge a lot of money. You
mm,
can't charge $1,000 a month for what Amway sell, which are more, well, I guess if you bought a lot of Amway products, which are more household products, cleaning
okay,
products,
okay.
and things like that. But education and business training, people are willing to pay a lot of money for. But if you think about it, the idea is that you're joining a multi-level marketing organization to learn business skills, which is the product, right? But then the idea is that the business skills really are encouraging you to just continue in the multi-level marketing company. And um, so what is the product that's actually being sold is actually just uh, come and learn how to sell this product to other people. And that's where it becomes and when I mean that, I mean sell the opportunity, sell the opportunity, sell the
Yes.
opportunity. And that's where it becomes a pyramid scheme. And that seems a lot of money to be paying for, I mean, whatever it is, mentoring or business coaching. But it's a lot of, I guess what you'd say, more legitimate, I guess, companies that have been around for a long time, they don't tend to have such massive barriers to entry. So it's
Mm,
usually you buy a startup kit for $100
oh,
or something like that. And so I would definitely encourage people to be wary of signing up to something that costs that much money with, that's a multi-level marketing sort of structure. A lot of chance to make money, but what are you actually selling? What's the value of what you're selling? That's harder to.
oh yeah, I believe we should be really aware. Um, no, I think what can make the multi-level marketing more dangerous is depending a little bit on what you're saying on the confusion of what's the really the product being sold probably because also I saw some proposals that I was like, man, I could pay the money that they were asking me for all the products they have on their school, for example, because it wasn't just business skills or to
Mm.
sell, but were also some education on finances. If it was high quality, it's another topic. I would say probably, but I was like, I would pay this. If I would pay, I would probably pay in another part of my life if these were they were just a product. I didn't even need the part of referrals and selling
Mm.
the other business, whatever it is. But one proposals that I got, it was on from Lyconet. I believe my Lyconet and my world that were like I could find local business to adhere to a partnership with the company Lyconet or My World. I believe My World was part of Lyconet, and I would win a commission because they would promote the cards to people on discounts, which was the the selling point. Um,
Mm.
so it's like I am, let's say, a normal client. Boom. And I know that I have like a kind of a map that certain local shops have discounts because they are partners with Lyconet, let's say. So I
Mm.
would go more probably to that shop because I know I have some discount because they are partners with Lyconet. So I can make money gaining new partners to Lyconet or My World, and so yeah, so I would like a commission from every part of it, and so yeah, it was that. So it was a that part. Well, it didn't interested me so much, but the part of the school, because
Mm.
besides that they had also a school. So it got me like this seems like a level marketing, or this looks a pyramid scheme in some sense because you also win money from recruiting other people. But at the same time, I feel there's some value here that can be that I can get from. But
Mm.
but again, I guess
I guess it should be
it depends on
it
on
should
the
be said
company,
as
right?
well that that you can there are referral schemes that aren't multi-level as well, and that's not always a bad thing if people know, like if you like a product that you're using and you want to tell a friend, and you get a discount off your monthly fee, or they get a discount, and you both win from that situation. I think that's fine. You know, that could be who does that. I mean, I think I was on Weight Watchers at some stage. I probably need to go back on it again. That's the weight loss program, and you sign
Yeah.
someone up, and they get a free month, and you get a free month, and but the difference is that you can't then have them in your team and then them sign up people, and you can't sort of create this revenue stream, but you can
Ah,
definitely. And I think, you know what I mean, like, so there's different structures that are probably more, that feel to me more ethical, or
yes.
um yeah, that kind of thing. But and I mean, it could be the case that this organization that you're talking about might have a good structure, and I think it does come down to the structure, and again, like you said, the value of the products that you're getting. I just think the the thing that always gets me about selling, so personal development and business as the product in a multi-level marketing company, is it seems to always um, turn out that they're talking about skills and development to grow this downline, and then that starts to get into it's just so tempting. I imagine that,
Yes.
if you had someone that's your mentor that brings you in, and they're motivated to sign you up and have you sign up other people, that you would use the skills that you're learning and that you're supposed to be getting from the course to try to just recruit more people. And it's again, it's, I guess you got to step back sometimes and think, why is this company using that model? And for the company, it's extremely profitable, for the top of the company, but not necessarily for the people that sign up. And I think I'm sure as we move through, we'll probably get to talk about, what happens when we use testimonials and sort of personal stories as our sort of benchmark for what good evidence is when making business decisions. So it would be interesting to maybe talk about that. And if you want at any stage, John, I can tell you about the studies that I've done on multi-level marketing, if that's something that like about the factors that may be associated with why people are attracted to it.
Oh yes, I have here lots of questions and some citations
Yeah,
from your studies.
sure.
Just getting warmed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I want to add that on the example I am telling, they also add that referral scheme of like you can also do this part of the business, and also you have the option of recruiting more people so they can get more restaurants and local shops wherever it is. So well, they can make money from that, and you make money from them making money from that. And it also applies the economic concept that you were talking about oversupply but here in the
Mm,
sense that every local shop is already recruited. Here I was seeing here in Portugal in my zone, I have already lots of restaurants. So it has a part of it that is like you will get a time that you will have nowhere more to looking for theoretically.
mm.
But just before we go then to your scientific studies, um, well, I'm yeah, it's a little it looks sometimes more doubtable, these companies, because they are really persuasive. They can get really us into a state where we feel we have to do that when we don't. But I'm not really sure if they are, well, I don't want to say necessarily bad, because lots of people lose money. But I don't know, it's a complex topic, because I don't.
It is complex, yeah, and some people do benefit from it. I guess it's a chance to maybe dip your foot in for the first time into entrepreneurship, or there's structures that are there for you, like a website or a payment system, or maybe again you were talking about the personal development and education you might get from that. Um, and I guess it just depends on what your goals are. And I think where it's there's some good there's becoming some really good uh, discourse or discussions around this online. Lots of YouTubers talking about it, but also there's the MLM conference, Consumer Protection Conference, that happens every year that I'm going to be a part of this year. It's happening
Yes.
in May, and that brings together a whole bunch of different people and experts from around the world to talk about to this online. And so I think you can, and even the Federal Trade Commission in America and here in Australia, we've got our consumer watchdogs, and I'm sure you do in Portugal too, that you can go to for advice on these kinds of things. So I definitely think that there's some of the claims that they're making are probably very much exaggerated. But then, like I think, like you said, it's complicated because people can get things out of it. I guess the thing that one of the things that I found going into this was that I noticed that when I talked to ex members, like people who had been in MLM and left, and perhaps they felt that they hadn't succeeded,
They were banned
they
from
often
they were, sorry, they were banned from MLM.
not banned. They would leave.
Uh-huh.
Maybe they were part of it for a year or 5 years, and at some stage they just left because it wasn't maybe giving them the financial support they needed, or
Mm.
whatever the reason was. When they left, often they would say that, look, it was just that it was my fault. So they would often
Mm.
say, it was my fault. I didn't work hard enough, or I didn't have, make the right, whatever it was. I didn't follow the system correctly. And what I was frustrated at, I think, was that I don't think that it's always people's personal faults. It's actually there's real issues with the system itself that you're told to trust
Mhm.
and to have complete faith in. So it's actually that you really need to learn the skills to, which I think is what your channel is about too, is to learn the skills of discernment and critical thinking, and to learn
Yes.
how to
Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
learn how to really
yeah, yeah,
think
yeah,
about these things.
yeah, to think about this, because a person that knows nothing about persuasion, psychology, can go to
Mm.
into these events or to these conferences. They think, "Oh my God, it's going to really change my life." And as you were talking,
Yeah.
and your work is important because of that. Like to giving more awareness to consumer that this may not sound as pretty as it is, and these are
Yeah.
more implications on your life, which is a little bit which touches your work. Actually, your work is really about it. I have here some questions more on the topic of positive thinking and manifestation that well probably are a little bit outside of what is expected, but I'm really curious to know your thoughts on it. But maybe before I get into that, I want to ask you what you think, touching on your studies, what you think it is more important on your studies for people to know. What do you think where people can get more value from your studies?
Well, maybe I'll just talk about the multi-level marketing study first because it really hadn't the psychology of I guess the whole experience of multi-level marketing from recruits signing up and going to those events to
Yes.
what their experience is like when they're in it. It's been covered in documentaries and in the media and even in television shows, but there hasn't been any psychological research on it. And there's only a
Mm.
few researchers that in the kind of academic world. So that was an area that I thought would be interesting to look at. And so we really just did the first set of psychological studies on, well, we started with people who are looking at what might attract people, what kind of traits in people might actually predict whether they are more likely to engage with multi-level marketing or sign up, I guess. So we looked at a big sample of people, over 1,000 people, and we measured a whole lot of different psychological traits, a lot of personality traits, or decision making traits. And then a week later, we got them to do another part of the study where they viewed a recruitment pitch. And it was mentioning a lot of the things that you mentioned. So personal development and changing your life, and making money, and but also just this real transformational narrative, which is a part of a lot of these messages. And then also sort of gave them a written description of multi-level marketing, so we could look at both of their responses to that, and then basically measured how likely they were to want to find out more information about this multi-level marketing company, how attracted they were basically to these companies. And we also then asked them if they'd been in multi-level marketing previously. And most, I think about maybe 11% or 12% of our sample had been in multi-level marketing. Most aren't now. But what that allowed us to do was to look at all the different psychological traits and that we thought could be related, and look at what are most sort of important when it comes to being attracted to a new multi-level marketing company. We were also able to look at people who had been in multi-level marketing before, whether those characteristics are what those characteristics are, and we're also had to look at whether those psychological traits predicted staying in multi-level marketing for longer. So I
Mm.
guess generally sort of more enthusiasm about multi-level marketing, and also to compare those. I feel like there's a complex kind of set of variables there that I'm missing one, where we looked at. So we looked at people who had never been in multi-level marketing before,
Mhm.
first of all, and how attracted they were to that ad. People who had been in multi-level marketing before and how attracted they were, and then whether we could predict whether or not people had been in multi-level marketing or not, and then how long. So that was the four different ideas. And so what we found overall was that people were the strongest kind of psychological factor seemed to be a need for and a desire for and placing a lot of importance on what we call extrinsic goals. So the idea that yeah, people want to make money out of, when they want to have status in society. They want to be seen as someone who's important, and they care about their image and what it looks like to other people, which is interesting because I think there is that personal development side of it for people, but it seems like in our sample, people who were more on the side of wanting these sort of extrinsic goals were the ones that are most attracted to it and the most likely to stay for longer and the most likely to still be attracted to multi-level marketing after they've left,
Uh-huh.
which is interesting. Yeah.
I was reading your study and I saw like intuitive thinking versus rational thinking. And then it was like intuitive thinking were more prone to adhere to these multi-level marketing schemes. I was like, yeah,
Sure.
the rational
Yeah.
ones, no. More than
Not so much, right? the
It's funny.
intuitive thinking side of things is interesting though, John, because the like it. I mean, obviously, some great business people probably do make decisions with their gut,
Oh yeah,
um,
absolutely.
but it seems, but I guess there's a difference between like when you're really, really knowledgeable about something, your gut decisions about that thing is probably much more accurate than if you're not knowledgeable. So if you're new to business, you're wanting to sort of go into multi-level marketing and you're being taught and being encouraged to make those intuitive decisions and think with your emotions, and that, yeah, that I think that can lead us into some murky water. So that was the second. That was the second set of factors that you mentioned there, and the third, which does actually lead us down into this other research I think we're going to talk about, is the idea of we found that people who are more spiritual, that believed in the power of a higher power were more likely to also engage and want to be in multi-level marketing, which is not totally unexpected considering that there is this sort of very much almost a self-actualization spiritual aspect that comes across in a lot of the recruiting, and these are big events. They're
Yes.
a bit like a big church event. And then the other thing
Absolutely.
was this idea of thought action fusion, which is something that we don't see a lot in just for pop psychology. It's something that's used in clinical psychology,
Mm.
but it's this idea that you have almost an over responsibility for your thoughts. So we know in psychology that
Mm.
an internal locus of control, so generally feeling like we can control our lives, is actually really good for achieving our goals and
Yeah,
things like that,
absolutely.
right?
Yes.
However, there's this thing called thought action fusion where that can go a little bit, it can be exaggerated to the point where you feel responsible for every thought that you have. And
Mm.
to the point where if you have a thought, you feel that that thought will actually happen. Now, that can be a good thing if it's a great thought, but where they actually first found this was in people with obsessive compulsive disorder, who have these very very obsessive, intrusive thoughts that feel very distressing to them. And then they believe that that thought will actually come true. So if you
Mm.
have a thought of killing someone that you like, just pops in your mind for a minute and then goes out again. For people without OCD, not a problem. Maybe we just laugh and go on. But for them, they get very attached to it, and it feels very distressing because they feel like it's going to make it more likely that it's actually going to happen. Okay, and so
Yes.
they, yeah. So I measured it, but not at that extreme, not with the clinical measure. And so, but what I was really getting at, and what didn't exist yet, was this idea of manifestation. So the spiritual belief that you can sort of use your mind, and then when whatever you can imagine will actually, especially if you imagine it strong enough, it will actually appear in your life. But we just didn't have a way of measuring that yet. But that's how I measured it in this study. And we found that those two multivariable spirituality and thought action fusion, higher levels of that were also associated with being attracted to multi-level marketing.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, and the religious belief, which is not what to expect, because they are also always promoting the hope and faith that keep working,
sure.
keep pushing, keep having those positive thoughts and a good attitude,
Mm.
because things will come, and it's really interesting because I saw the P, P, please tell me if I'm saying this word right. Pygmalion effect. Pygmalion effect.
Mm.
Pygmalion
Yep.
effect, which is really I found it really interesting. The fact that if I believe in something a lot, that you will conform a little bit to what I believe it is expected from you, which is really
Yes.
interesting, because of course if I have the core belief I am respected, people will respect me, and so I put on my little suit, I am more let's say like a CEO with a suit, and I'm like, shoulders back, chin up, hello, what's up. Of course people are like, who the hell is this guy? Okay, hello. It tends to happen that, right?
Yeah.
um and also now I want to touch on the manifestation part. So I want to ask you on these topics of manifestation, positive thinking. Do you believe in manifestation in some way or some part, personally?
Well, the way that we've defined it in our study, I would say no. So no,
Yeah, yeah,
and I don't.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
your study is just thinking and nothing else, right? It's just think, it will appear, boom, like magic thinking, as you describe in the study.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So and it's attached to, I guess, more of a usually like a spiritual worldview. So it's the idea that the universe will, if you put a thought out there to the universe and you really believe that like it's true, then it will manifest. It'll be attracted to you. It'll come to you like a magnet. So no, I don't believe in that. But I did for a little while back in my,
Oh, really?
I'm in my
Interesting.
40s now, but I think, in my early 20s, I think I dipped my feet in, and so I've had some experience with hardcore believers and being in groups of people again, like you were mentioning before, where these beliefs are really strong. So yeah.
And did you have any spiritual experiences, some supernatural or awkward or outside of the box experiences?
Um,
I'm sorry, we'll get back in a
look,
moment to the study, but I am
yeah,
curious.
no. I think it's good to talk about, I think, personal experiences, and I think that and I'm totally happy to do that. When I was still at high school, and I went to an event at a big stadium with Deepak Chopra, the
Ah,
sort of Indian American doctor who is very, very popular, or was very popular at the time back in the 90s, and um, he's got, he sort of mixes a sort of, I guess, Hinduism with new age spirituality, and throws in a lot of kind of quantum physics and a bit of science, and tries to sort of make this very compelling worldview of that we are just consciousness, and there's all these wonderful statements that really got me very enchanted by the idea of, I guess, that we are these kinds of spiritual beings that there's no real limits to what we can achieve, and we can work with the laws of the universe to be able to sort of manipulate things, really. And the interesting thing is that that can feel really hopeful, and it can give you a lot of hope. And I think it did for me. And then I really got into Anthony Robbins, and set all my goals, and really big goals. And so I had a lot of experience with all of those things, and went and saw him. And then I got into studying hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and became
nice.
like a counselor who used hypnosis, and for about 7 years, and used. So of course, in that field, it's yeah, the power of the mind is obviously people really believe in that
Yeah,
too, right?
yes, and I know some hypnotherapists here,
Yeah,
and lots of them believe on this awkward stuff, like there are
yeah,
past lives, future lives, no reincarnation is
sure,
true,
yeah,
and they do all their work professionally, but they have like these experiences that they believe they are true and we are these spiritual beings and all etc. Which I think is
hmm,
really interesting. You know, in this moment, I've had also some. I don't call it spiritual. I'm not. I'm calling metaphysics experience.
hmm,
So I have some of these experiences that I'm like, man, I'm a conscious human being in a sense that uh, I will not sure if you agree that you can look back to an experience and say, oh, that it was an illusion. It was some illusion is the right word. Yeah, it can believe so. Like you imagining something, it's really here when it's hallucination. I believe probably can look back at something and see if it's hallucination or not. And
hmm,
if I put how I say my metaphysic hat, I can see how some of these really statements about spirituality and manifestation they can have some truths on it or some variables that we can see in real life.
hmm,
But of course, I remove that and I put my positivist hat of empirical, objective. Only what I can duplicate works. But it's really interesting because if I change one or put another, I really feel that that can happen and it can work some things. And I think, and I had somewhere here, I think when we, for example, go to Anthony Robbins events or listen to these gurus that they say this, I feel like we can be in a wrong route. For example, I can go to an event and I define my goals because I want to be like him, and I go to event because I want really to change my life, and I see how he has knowledge to offer me, but I don't really want to be him. I want to be me, but with his knowledge or in some kind of way. And I think that's when we have some kind of problem in the first example. Because
hmm,
if I don't want to be me, but I want to be him, I guess that it's not good for, well, your the psyche
yeah,
of the person. But if there is some these paradigms that some people work with and they got results and they are professional and of course they fit in society and don't impose in some way their beliefs on other people, I think it's okay with that. And I really think, especially I got into reading Carl Jung, and Carl Jung has some metaphysics look that if you, I believe, if you understand a little bit of this world, man, it is like impossible for you to not see there is something that is more than just physical and objective. and uh, uh,
hmm.
and uh, and it's really interesting for me if you can get I don't know if that's your interest, probably not, but I think
No,
so,
I would say, John, that's definitely I'm very similar in that I'm always looking for trying to balance those two hats because I know that we have those two hats and of the intuitive and the more rational hats, and the both are very important. My career, other than what I sort of mentioned, was in the music industry before I went to university and became an academic. So I really understand the use of those two hats from a practical perspective in that way, and I
yes,
in
but
art and you know what I mean. Like I feel it's very important, and that you need to go to those events to feel inspired and to feel like there's that you can achieve and like almost open up the possibilities of what's possible for you in your life.
Mhm.
And I feel that there's uh, a feeling that comes along with that you are someone who's special and that even though there's all these people on earth and we're all trying to sort of make the best out of things, that you're important in a way, and that you can change and grow and overcome obstacles. And so anything that gets you there to me is great. And
Yeah.
um I think with the hats and going to these events or doing this work, like you're saying that um, if you feel a pressure to just be wearing one of those hats at all times,
Mhm.
that's when the red flags go up for me. If you're in these social groups where you're feeling a lot of there's this rock star like Anthony Robbins image up on stage, and he's very powerful, and he's a very certain kind of guy
Mhm.
who is very different to me. And if you try to adopt all his ways of thinking, which are really his, out of all of his experiences, they're really just his way of thinking. He doesn't do systematic research or on this stuff. It's his own experiences, and I'm not saying he's hasn't got things of value. He does, but to
No,
think
absolutely.
that we are all going to go into that event, and that his method is going to work for all of us. I think we've got to put on that other cap as well and realize that we just have to take pieces of advice from people and try to put it together in a way that makes sense. But I certainly am interested in learning how to balance, to work with the heart and the head, to especially in business. And I think people do, and people want to. People go into business for all sorts of different reasons. I mean, that's kind of, I'm in the business school, I guess, but I'm mainly a psychology researcher. But you know, you you don't want to just sort of stand on one side or the other. You need the emotions, you need the drive, you need the motivation, you need the big goals, inspiration, and you need to have your feet firmly planted on the ground. And so I guess my spirituality, if I was going to say I have one, is about that. It's a more, I guess, a Buddhist approach now, where I'm trying to really, or maybe a more Western Buddhist approach now, where that I think is informed by Jung and by more of the new wave therapies that are coming through, like dialectical behavior therapy, and like as a research psychologist, I'm interested in that, where it's about balancing real radical acceptance of how things are and really seeing clearly, as much as possible, like reality, including your inner and outer experiences, but at the same time having value, like knowing what is important to you, knowing what you want to change in your life, and being able to move forward with those two hats, I guess. Or
Yeah, yes, two hats, two paradigms.
yeah,
Yeah, I said hats. You can call it paradigms.
yeah,
It's the same.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You touched in a lot of topics to me
Mm.
that I can get into it. I guess I will pick this one. So um, I think one thing is going to an event uh, and having those feelings and emotions and put it as in a category of spirituality, like I think you did a little bit, which I'm not sure if it needs to be spirituality, because
Sure.
it can be just
Yeah.
emotions. If I have some guy that knows how to persuade me and has some nice images and videos, everything is possible. Let's go, boom. It's just feelings that I'm
Mm.
having. I'm not really sure if that's some spiritual experience
Absolutely.
in
It doesn't have to be at all. And I'd say I'm an atheist. Like, I don't have any actual sort of supernatural beliefs, um, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't, for some people, they might label it like that, but exactly like you said, it doesn't have to
Yeah,
be.
yeah, but
Yeah.
absolutely, that is through experiences and emotions that
Yeah.
we feel there's something spiritual that we can get in touch on, or have some outside of the body experiences, or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
how we balance that? Well, I try to balance it. I believe I do a good work in doing it as time
Mm.
goes. But what I want to tell you here, both are really important, especially because in science, if you don't work with the empirical way, well, yeah, you will not be as seen as very credible researchers, I believe, right? Because we are in a positivist paradigm. But there are also scientists that they vote and they are for a paradigm that is more than just that, you know. Um, and for example, I saw on Carl Jung Synchronicity book some extrasensory perception. So I can get some information somehow, for example, of which card you are holding on your hand. For example, I did experiments like this with the Zinner cards. It was the 25 deck of cards with five different type of cards. So for example, five circles, five crosses, and it makes in total 25 cards. And they were experimenting how how many people would guess correctly the card that the person was holding, and they got the results, which was interesting because some people guessed more cards than mathematically it is supposed to happen through multiple and multiple and multiple repetitions. And I was like, oh, really interesting. So, and I saw because this was were making the 90s, not in the 90s, but around what,
Yeah, it was pretty
50s,
early, I
40s.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I saw, and these experiments that I'm talking about from G.B. Ryan especially, and I'm going to see, and today we have these type of experiments being made today. And actually I found that there is some foundations in Portugal, like Bail Foundation, that fund this type of research along of other neuroscience that type of research, which is really interesting because there's some of these scientific scientific research being made, which I'm a curious guy. I'm an interested on guy on those things. So I like to see a little bit on that. So it's interesting to see that this is really being made, but there is some, I guess, social uh, barriers to maybe explore a little bit more of these sides. So into that, I want to tell you that, for example, CIA, and I believe this is correct. And there are some videos out there of people talking about it, and they took this from the CIA.org website or .gov, from the CIA.
Mm.
I believe it's the right website of classified documents that were unclassified of them doing like. These astral projections, for example, that is a really deep state that you are, that theoretically somehow you can travel through space and time, and it talks in Einstein theory, or behind that we are behind time and space, and you can get into some place to get information, come back. So it's really interesting because I feel like this is really the CIA website. I guess it's a credible institution, and I have this, and you have these papers. I was checking these out yesterday, and you have these papers of this kind of tutorials, or whatever you want to call it, to how to get into these states and get this information. I'm like, what the hell? So for me, when I see all of this, it's Ryan Research Center that does this type of experiments of extrasensory perception, is parapsychology. And I saw
Mm.
these, I started reading these guys, and you can start to see some, let's say, metaphysical patterns. Like if I put my metaphysics hat, if I'm seeing the world through my metaphysics paradigm, I see things in a really interesting way. But then, okay, but let's go back to reality. But it's like, okay, let me maybe take some decisions or see some things through this paradigm and see what it works. But then let's come back to reality, as it say. And I think it's really interesting. I think we can in the future make some, I don't know if it's right to call it, but like, I'm not sure if the right word is ethnographic studies, but in the sense that you get into, for example, into some groups or into
Mm.
these paradigms of some quantum physics or whatever it is, and to relate those experiences and then come back to reality
Mm.
and see what the hell it can make sense or not. Because
Yeah, well, I mean, there's sometimes as well. I'm also interested. I think, like because my work sort of tries to look at the possibilities for positive thinking, or even like these more
yeah, please touch on that.
out there things, and the limitations. But I'm also very open to the fact, which is, I guess, what you're saying here as well. I think that, like, if something works for you, then it doesn't really matter if it's true or not, as long as it is helpful. And I think you can study whether those things are helpful, and you don't even have to worry about whether they're true or not,
Mm-hmm.
in some circumstances. And so there are some things that where this. Okay, so here's an example, right? So you could believe in manifestation very, very strongly, um, or even, I think, there's research on, and I sort of touched on it in my papers, around half believing. So it's like you, in a gambling terms, like hedge your bets. You put some bets down here, or like on stock market. But you also put it on. So you put some on the red, you put some on the
Hey,
black.
I wish I thought that part, man. I
I
went through
don't know
like
if I,
seven. I went through like I read your thesis because it had other experiments. I read,
yeah.
I believe it was page 70, and I saw after that some main topics. But I really would love to
Yeah.
see that part, man.
Yeah, it's like we kind of just like maybe like we believe in a superstition or something, because it's just kind of like what we do, and it gives us, like, I guess, you wear your lucky socks if you're an athlete because you won a race in those socks, and
Oh, I
maybe
saw
it
that
does give
one.
you yeah, you just
Yeah.
get
I went with
that
these
little
shoes because now
confidence
I'm
boost.
yeah. I went with my
Yeah,
little shoes.
but I
Now
mean, there's
I'm using it every time now.
yeah, and but it's not such an issue as if you really do just sort of use it like and it gives you that little bit of confidence boost. That's great, but I guess we don't need to know whether there's there's any truth to the fact that the socks is somehow sort of the problem becomes, what if you forget your socks, right? And
Mm.
if you forget you forget your magic socks, um, you don't why if you really sort of what's the word, committed to that belief that no, these socks really are these magical socks, then you're kind of needlessly putting yourself through this pain of if you forgot the socks. And so then you start, I'm getting, as a metaphor, it's kind of like you could if you believe in things that are sort of not empirically able to be sort of verified, that's okay, except when it isn't, right? Except if it really does cause trouble. So another area might be if you have health beliefs around curing yourself with the power of the mind. Now, of course, positive outlook and feeling like you do have some sense of personal control, these things have been shown to be really effective for helping people make good decisions, be resilient through health crises. Perhaps even, positivity could even have some physiological effect of reducing stress that then helps us to actually be healthier or recover better. And there are studies that suggest that, right? However, if we take that to the extreme and we believe that all our thoughts are our responsibility, and our thoughts are what cause our illness and what heals our illness, and you might then choose not to go and get treatment, and that could be something that could be. So again, doesn't matter if it's true or not if it helps you, but if it harms you, then it really starts to matter whether something's true or not. So
Yeah, I saw that on your research in the sense that believing in these, it can be helpful, as you are saying right now, but when it replaces all the establishment empirical based treatment, it can becomes a problem. Yeah, that's it. But absolutely correct. That's right. If you have some empirical based evidence that this will treat you, especially with especially to everything, right? Cancer, whatever it is, it's not helpful to. Yeah, I'm not going to the doctor if I have cancer. I'm going just to put my thoughts out there. No, you can do both at least. I'll go to the
do both.
doctor.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll do both.
exactly. Yeah.
No, don't go to the doctor. Hanger. My family obligated me to go into the doctor. I only need my no. Do both, right? And in a way that feels good for you, not in a way that I can have my good thoughts because these guys are telling me that they are not good for me. Now you touch on Anthony Robbins. I believe these beliefs can be useful, as you also said. But I believe you also can expand and have some more flexibility in the sense that I believe that these socks and shoes, they are magical to me. No, but I can also have a mind that I know that believing on that gives me results, which I don't know if it is really true or not. The shoes, if they are magical, but I know it gives me results. So I have that mindset. I have that belief. Boom. But then, if I don't have the socks, I can also have the expanded and the flexibility to say, yeah, the socks are with me on my mind, for example, or
Yeah.
or some way that you reinterpret the world that I don't need the socks anymore because now their power are on me. Boom, let's go. Like Anthony Robbins stuff. The Tony Robbins, I guess they would believe on.
Mm.
I'm not sure if magic socks is the right word, but as we talked it, I'm sure you,
Yeah.
you really will get some flexible on their interpretation to get the best out of people or the best of himself.
Yeah, and that's what I think we mean by half belief is like you apply the belief in certain areas where it's useful, and maybe you just sort of forget to apply it in the areas where it's not useful. And that's okay. I think I guess why I wanted to look at manifestation beliefs was because people can take it not so seriously, but some people take it really seriously,
Yes,
and they
that's a
kind of,
problem.
and that's where the problem lies, especially like where, because it really came from, like it got popularized at least by the book The Secret, and that was around 15 years ago. And that book's pretty extreme. It really says, look, you are responsible for every event that's happened in your life, and every event that's happened in your life is caused by the power of your thoughts. And if you really take that on board and apply it as a worldview, you're going to come up against things again like the health issues and things where it's going to lead to, I would say, you're probably on average you're gonna actually end up causing more problems, which I guess is what we found. That there's definitely some positives to believing in manifestation, but we also found some negatives. And I think that if you really believe this, um, you're actually not going to notice the negatives, and that's why I think the research is important.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely, and that's how why also why we should push critical thinking on people. I don't know what you think of this idea, but I think philosophy can be good for that. When we are really young, we can see things
yeah.
more critically and see things as they are. Okay, this is a written book by somebody they believe so. It is in a extreme way, or we can interpret it that way. And while we are reading it, we can label that as extreme uh, or interpret it in that way, which most people, lots of people do it. So I think critical thinking helps you on that. Like I know that these people are writing right these like these because they are more or a lot in depth into these, or because they are want to sell me this. No, because if you
Mm,
talk in this way, you will sell more than just hey. If you are always putting, let's say, disclaimers that this cannot happen, that this is not so easy, and that's why your work is interesting, because if you push these knowledge and these uh, no, I'm not sure. Not if you start advertising like it can be useful, but take care if you are going to the extremes. But where we know if we are on the extreme or if we are on the right path, like let's say, I think that's really
mm.
difficult. I think we need a lot of psychotherapy or a lot of self knowledge about ourselves to get into that, to really know
Mm,
where
mm.
where we stand for, and when we are playing outside of the zone, or in the how we say in English, in the limbo, like in the between, in the between
Sure.
heaven and
Yeah.
hell.
Well,
So
look, I mean, there's a researcher that I only just came across recently. I can't remember her name off, but she she looks at emotional agility. So
hmm,
the idea of being able to dance between different emotions, positive and negatives. Really great concept. And she has done a lot of work. Sort of, well, some of her interviews sort of focus on the fact that it's like the antidote to manifestation beliefs, because manifestation beliefs tend to be quite fairly strict when you really believe them, and
hmm,
that you end up and she sort of talks about this idea of toxic positivity, which I'm interested in studying, and that's the idea of sort of applying positivity in places where perhaps it's not so great. Like if you're always applying positivity to cover up negative feelings, or you demonize all of your negative thoughts, and only sort of want to focus on positive thinking, that's a very inflexible way of and in fact is giving those thoughts that you don't like more power than you need to give them.
hmm,
They're sort of just there, and you could just let them go, but it's getting into that OCD space of like all your thoughts are very, very powerful. Whereas this emotional and this agility to be able to handle a range of different emotions, I think could be a way to know whether or not you're on in that space in between, like rather than being very extreme. I think one way of knowing whether you may be holding something a bit too tightly is to think about your reaction to something. And it could be in any situation or any context, but to look at your reaction when someone says something that you don't believe, and if it makes you very, very, or criticizes your beliefs. Do you know what I mean? And it
Yes,
makes you feel yeah,
it make you uncomfortable. You make, well, how
yeah.
the hell you said that?
That's a sign that we're really tightly holding on to those beliefs. And of course, sometimes we want to, maybe that's something like, violence against women is bad, and you want to
Yes,
put a line
yeah,
down there,
yeah, yeah,
fine,
yeah, yeah.
right? But then other things like about how we attain success in life or how we live a good life, to me, those issues, you don't want to be too extreme in thinking you have the answer, because and because you might miss out on some really important kind of lessons as we move through life. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But if yeah, I really like this concept of emotional agility.
Mm,
I believe I'm going to search a little bit more on it. I think that
yeah.
even of what you are labeling here as extreme, I
Mm,
believe in also there are a certain threshold where it can be useful for the person, in the sense that if the person believes that in the more, let's say, extreme, that they are really cautious with their thinking, but when they have those negative thoughts, they don't really, as you were saying, like get really more really, how's the right word, more reactive, like, oh no, I had a bad thought, oh my god, somebody's gonna die, no.
yeah.
That's the, yeah, that's the right indicator. So yeah, so I believe we are on the same page, because you said, like, yeah, a good indicator to know if they are on the extreme, as you call it, is if the person reacts over emotionally, in if it is confronted, or if it has a bad thought and she is, for example, not doubling on himself, so that's the right word, if he is like uh, pondering on himself, like thinking,
Yeah,
oh no,
pondering, ruminating.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
ruminating, like, oh, I had a bad thought and
yeah.
now blah, 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 blah. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
that is so yeah, we're on the same page, I
Yeah,
believe.
because again, there's lots of situations where it is useful to just put off thinking about something. Like if I was doing this interview and I suddenly had this really doubtful thought about how well it was going, which I'm not, and everything's going fine, you know.
Nice.
But if I did, and that's the problem is, and I've worked with people because I come from the entertainment industry. As a kind of a life coach, I guess I've worked with quite a lot of people, and with hypnotherapy and that, on stage fright and things like that. And a
Nice.
lot of the time, it's really just those intrusive thoughts that come into your mind, that just that doubt. Like in this situation, you really just got to throw all of that away, push it down, get rid of it. Don't worry about it. For this hour and a half, I'm going to just be the most confident person that I can be. But but not as a recipe for how to live your whole life, right? So, if you constantly have those things coming up in your life, and you're trying to push them away and push them down, eventually they sort of come out in probably pretty negative ways. At least it's going to make you more stressed, and that seems to be some of the findings that you find that over time, if you consistently push away negative thoughts, it's just stressful and takes a lot of energy. So that can lead to not addressing things that need to be addressed, or two, that you're just physically more stressed, and it's probably not going to lead to very good outcomes. So we've got to find a way, like in these situations where it's a small length of time, throw them away. It doesn't matter, get through the day, feel confident. But at some stage, you've got to have a way of getting in touch with what you're feeling, and on a consistent basis, and sort of being able to name and understand what your experiences are, and that's more nuanced than sort of just saying what the TikTokers might say, which is like, say this thing 3 times a day and it's all going to be great,
Yeah,
So
yeah. And that brings me to an interesting point, which is, so for example, that there is a way to regulate emotions. That is, for example, a thought comes and you reinterpret the situation. So I don't know. He didn't like what I said because he touched his ear. So no, I reinterpret it in a sense. No, he touched his ear because I know he had to touch his ear. But there's some threshold where that doesn't work, and you are just um, reframing in a way that isn't already helpful. So
Mm, mm.
I know this is outside of what we were brought here, but as we are on this, do you think? How do you think we can make that the extension, for example?
Yeah, good question. So the reframing and reinterpreting, um, it, what do you think, just out of interest?
What I think, what
Yeah,
I
what do you think? I'd like to know your thoughts, but then I'll tell you mine. Gives me time to think that way.
uh
What do you think about it? Where's the line of reinterpreting and like when it does? Because I've definitely felt that a lot in my life,
hmm,
where the emotions have been too strong
yeah.
to
I
to use that technique.
Well, I guess it is if it is working. If it is working, keep going.
Yeah.
If we see ourselves in a way that, yeah, I reinterpreted that or I said that, but I still feel like the old way before, like
Yeah.
before the reinterpretation.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a signal. And
Yeah. I mean, I found for myself that reading books on these more third wave cognitive behavioral therapies like dialectical behavior therapy. They've got strange names. I don't know why they
mm,
had to make these names, but acceptance and commitment therapy and dialectical behavior therapy, even for people who are not, don't feel like they need clinical help, I think is really helpful because I think it brings together quite like a really nice combination of Eastern and Western philosophy of life and change, and
mm,
it's made for an audience of people who maybe didn't grow up in that Western philosophy, sorry, the Eastern philosophy, where you learn how to really understand what you're feeling uh, without worrying about having to do anything at that particular point in time. So, it's almost like things are so strong, things are so powerful, like emotionally, negatively, powerful that no amount of reinterpretation is working for
yes,
you. Then another approach is just to actually learn how to be with the uncomfortable feeling and not not sort of have to do anything about it. And I guess that's because then that way we're sort of letting go of any pattern that we have around how we normally deal with those things.
mm,
So I have a friend who's gone through a really hard time, and they're a very smart and intelligent person, and they um, had some trouble in their life. They went through everything was they've achieved so many great things in their life, and the person got to a stage where it just fell apart for them emotionally, and they burnt out. And they said that, and we were sort of talking about it and sort of saying that these ways of coping in our life, like being really strong and being really gritty and just pushing through or reframing things, can be really, really useful for a long period of time in our life. But that sometimes, and I don't know what causes it, but sometimes you get to a point in life where it just doesn't work anymore,
mm,
in a big way. And if you keep pushing, trying to do the same thing over and over and over again, it can actually lead to you having just a full on sort of physical and emotional breakdown. And in those situations, you've got to find a new way of relating to yourself. So one way is to just sort of like learn. It's a skill to learn the skill of being able to sit, and you could call it mindfulness, but being
yes.
able to sit
I
with,
was thinking on that for
yeah,
like 5 minutes.
sure, that's really what it is. But just being able to just be present with whatever's happening, and you realize very quickly there's all sorts of things that go through. We're really all very weird, strange people, and
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
okay. you know what I mean? That's okay. And developing that compassion or acceptance for ourselves. What it does is it does help generally to what I'll just give you I can give you a tip or a technique that I learned in a book. I can't
Yeah,
remember which book
please
it was.
share it, man.
I do know what book. It's called Dealing with Difficult Emotions, I think. And it was it's around dialectical behavior therapy. And it was just a little tip. And the tip was, when you're in a situation where things are really intense, and you can just say to yourself, like, to try to name what's happening to you, but to say it like this. So to say, I'm having a thought, or I'm having a feeling.
Hmm.
Right now, even just that little sort of twist of, instead of feeling like you're making me feel, or I'm feeling this, or I'm doing this, you're just separating yourself a bit by saying, I'm having the thought that uh, I'm the worst, you know, podcast interviewee of all time, right? I'm having the feeling of anxiety, and it's actually quite interesting how just that little bit of separation, and noticing that, like, I could be having a feeling or having a thought, but it doesn't have to define my whole experience. Just helps to separate you a little bit from it, and then it it just loosens the power of that, because normally you're just used to sort of fighting with the emotion. You know, your rational hat is fighting with your sort of intuitive emotions coming up, and you're just fighting. And so by sort of stepping back and going, you know what, okay, let the emotions do their thing. And yeah, we might be afraid that it's going to we're not going to be able to handle it, it's going to be too overwhelming. But the interesting thing that often happens is that it doesn't necessarily do that. It sort of does this thing, and then eventually sort of starts to lower a bit when we step back from our old patterns of how we normally respond to it. And this is in situations where nothing else has worked. This is what I'm saying, you know. And then, you know what I mean, then you're in a position to be able to walk forward a little bit more, going, okay, so I'm having this thought, I'm having these feelings, and I can I can ch- choose to just do nothing right now, and then when I'm feeling a little bit better, perhaps I'll take some steps to go for a walk, and do the things I know are going to be good for me. I'm going to, if I have a thought that that person hates me, when I'm in that state of feeling really sort of depressed or sad about that, trying to talk myself out of it is not always going to work.
Mhm.
So I just be mindful. I just accept that that's how I'm feeling. Okay. And it's just not as big a deal as I feel that it is. It helps it to sort of relax a little bit. And then at some other time, when you're feeling a bit more resourceful, you can have that conversation with yourself, the reframing conversation. Say, listen, you know, like, that person really, there could be many different reasons why that person touched their ear, or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel it's like if the emotion builds so much that surpasses the rational influence, and so it's like we just have to accept them and let do them works, and put it outside in somewhere or another, like feeling. Yeah, you can put it out like
Mm.
feeling. Let the emotion
Sure.
just come out and wrap around the rational part. Like give them space, and then the emotion, it will eventually calm down, and you can help this state by giving a walk, running, having a good sleep, so your body can, let's say, give a reset on your emotion state, so you can be, let's say equal again to rationality. Now, because um, rationality, I associate a lot with prefrontal cortex, reasoning, how can I solve this problem, what the hell is he doing, what the hell is he talking, and in 1960s, well, now they discovered that there is a lot of bidirectional connections between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. So it's what we were talking about here a little bit.
Mm.
Reason influences emotion, emotion influences reason, a sense that
Yeah.
and
Just as a metaphor, it's like a relationship, right? That you are really like having a relationship with yourself, and you're having these brain areas are one is very new, and one is very old, and they're kind of having this relationship with each other. But it's funny that it's almost like it comes out in the opposite way. So it's like the new part of our brain often looks like the old, wiser sort of rational part. The older part looks like the young, sort of like impulsive kind of emotional child. But yeah, but
It's like
I
the
think
kid.
it is good.
It's like
Yeah,
the kid.
it is. It is like the kid. That's exactly right. So I feel like it's helpful to sometimes think of uh, ourselves as being in relationship with other parts of ourselves, and so I think that that can be helpful when it comes to realizing that there's lots of different ways that we can move forward, and we can surprise ourselves. My wife is a improvisational comedy and theater teacher. She does
Nice.
improv, and it's one of the best. Yeah, it's great. It's one of the best skills to just be able to get that flexibility that we were talking about, where you could go into a situation where you feel anxious, or you know you're used to behaving in a certain way, and then you have to just really, you're given a suggestion and you have to pretend that you're in this totally different world, and it
Mhm.
starts to open up the flexibilities about how you can think and feel, and also the idea that um, that however you think that it might work out, in the end it might not work out that way, because it's improvised, it's made up, and even being surprised by that and having those things happen, like that's a cure for phobia that's often used in psychology, right? This is exposure therapy, and the idea that you just need to work up to exposing yourself to these things that you might be uh, scared of or afraid of, um, and maybe you'll have a different experience and it'll surprise you, and it actually really does sort of rewire or reboot those parts of your brain that are sort of stuck in one kind of relationship, and again, using a metaphor, but it means that you can, by having new experiences, you can actually just widen the possible responses that you can have in a certain situation. So that's good for phobias, because you don't want to just go into that same pattern, but it's also great for other things in life too, right? So just developing the ability to have new thought action repertoires, as it's often called, um, is a great skill to build. So I guess maybe I just went on a bit of a
So,
tangent, but I think it's,
so in this
yeah.
way, the widen of responses, it is like to have the response that I want in where in the old way of being I was going to just be shaky and with insecurities and just being dominated by
Oh,
emotion.
yeah, it's like, well, and I would probably even open up to another possibility there. So you've got the response that you're having, which you might not want. You've got the response that you want, but I am a big sort of fan of. I trained with people who have trained with this psychiatrist called Milton Erickson, who was a very sort of like the grandfather of modern clinical hypnosis, use of it in therapy. And he used to say, like, the problem is the solution, but he also used to say the solution is the problem. So
Mm.
I probably should try and explain what that is. So you've
Yeah,
got,
please unpack that.
it's a very weird, it's a weird concept, right? And again, we're getting into the art of it now and not the science, because I don't know how you test this, but like um
Exposure.
that
No, the solution is a problem. The problem is a solution. The problem it is in this certain
yes.
situation I have fear. So the problem is a solution because no confront the fear of that situation. Boom.
Yeah. So yeah, the fear is, I can't handle this. There's going to be a snake in the room, and I just can't handle it.
Hmm.
Oh well, then yeah, the problem is the solution is like you really need to face that fear, and then you learn that it's not what you thought it was going to be. So it just doesn't end the little pattern there that you think is going to happen. Your brain is predicting is going to happen, and that's why it's keeping you away from that experience.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen, and instantly, almost instantly, the brain can rewire itself in those kinds of situations. It doesn't work for everything, but in phobias it's really quick. And when the solution is the problem is the interesting part, right? Because the solution is the problem is the idea that when you're in an unresourceful state, like let's say you've got this phobia of a snake, your solution to that problem is you think that you should stay away from it, right? And that's
Yes.
so the solution is the problem, right? That's keeping it, like, sure, it worked in the beginning, but now it doesn't work anymore, you know, because we've got this phobia. So it does keep you safe, but now it's actually stopping you from doing all these other things you want to do in life. And so now the solution is the problem. And so sometimes, and this is why, and it kind of connects back to what we've been talking about with goals and success. And sometimes I think I have this strange thing, a habit of not setting like very, very specific goals. I'll work towards things and all of that, but I get suspicious about goals, or superstitious about goals, because I think that maybe the state I'm in now, I don't know how good it could be, or how, what my best sort of way forward might be in the future, or where I could end up. And so I don't want to limit myself to thinking I know what that's going to look like, right? Because I have had experiences in the past where I had this music career, I achieved a lot of the goals I wanted to achieve, and you know, in front of tens of thousands of people performing, but not feeling like it was what I thought it was going to be, right? And so I guess I just had those experiences, like when you're 14 or 15 or 16, you set yourself a goal, and sure, I can achieve it. Maybe it helps me achieve it, but then I've achieved the goal, and now the solution, the thing I thought was going to make me happy, is now didn't make me happy. Because what do I know when I'm 15 or 16 about what that process is of becoming a famous musician or whatever? I have no idea. I really have no idea whether that's going to make me happy or not. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what we're like. We really don't know whether this future thing is going to make us happy or not. So I'm not saying don't set goals, but I'm saying the solution can sometimes be the problem. And so so I'm going to get back to this metaphor here. You've got the problem is the problem is the solution, which is to sort of, and then the solution is the problem. And yes, you want to try to move towards something that you would like to think or feel instead. And just to add into that, and it's a bit of an improv idea, is that, but maybe there's all other possibilities too that you can experience that might not be any of those things. It could be something a little bit different. And so it's not getting too stuck on, right, it has to be this way. And that's a bit counterintuitive to, I think, what the wisdom is at the moment out there, especially on the internet, where they've got these like real sort of alpha kind of people sort of saying, right, it's got to be this way, you got to set that goal, and you've got to have this David Goggins kind of mindset of like getting up every morning at, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning. But I mean, that guy's just a freak. None of us are going to be like that. Let's just be honest, you know. So
Oh yes.
to me, yeah, I don't know. I just have a different approach to that. I'm definitely not the David Goggins of.
Me either. But that's interesting. That's interesting. What you were talking about for me in my head is like build systems, not goals. You know, you can achieve
Yeah.
a goal because you set it, but you could reach out more if you didn't if you wasn't so focused on the goal. And
Sure.
at the same time is like I reached the goal, and now what? No, I was watching this
Yeah.
documentary, the weight of gold, where Michael Phelps says this, like, even if I won the Olympic medal, I felt a huge emptiness inside of me. I won the Olympic medal, and now what? You won the Olympic medal, and you it's like counterintuitive, right? You feel happy at the moment, and now what? No, so it's like it's like doing what.
There's lots of research as well to back that up, you know. So yeah, definitely, like, just over and over and over again, it shows that when we value things that are extrinsic, so we have to, it's like a mean, I don't, maybe it's a more English metaphor, so I don't know if it makes sense, but like a means to an end. So it's like you have to go through something to get to the happiness, right? So there are certain things in life that are intrinsically meaningful. So you might look at your child, or play with your dog, or go for a walk in nature, and just that little act that you could access anytime actually makes you feel happy and good, right?
Yeah, I feel good.
It, or you might really love
It's
reading.
winning pleasure. It's winning having pleasure doing the thing and not just
Yeah,
waiting for when the goal happens. Or that's a little
yeah,
bit
exactly.
what I think you
Yeah,
are talking about when you talk
exactly.
about
That's
goggling.
exactly right. And
It's not
those
exactly.
extra, yeah, those extra things where the goals are, you have to set a goal in the future, and you're sort of betting your happiness on achieving that goal. And so that often includes like the right promotion, the right money, the right sort of look that I'm going to achieve, by having whatever, I don't know, surgery or whatever. And all of those things are just, it's sort of one, a lot of them are slightly quite out of our control compared to going
Mm.
for a walk or patting the dog, right? Like as in, there's a lot of other things that could get in the way of that in
Oh
life that we're
yes.
not in control of. Do you know what I mean? So the problem is, and we're putting our happiness sort of off there in the future. And like I was saying, it's like the bigger the goal, the further away the goal, the less we really know about what that experience is actually going to be like for us when we achieve it. So it's
Interesting
almost like
approach.
I feel like we should have, yeah, less faith in long-term goals making us happy, and much more faith in those things that we know are that make us happier in each sort of moment.
Okay, Lucas.
Yeah,
Amazing. Thank you for your participation. Um, I didn't make some of the questions that I had here, uh, but yeah, I would love to have you here in the future too, if that's okay for you. So
sure.
I want to ask you if you want to say something more just to finish this podcast. Now, if you want to promote your scientific studies, if you want to promote something, go
Um,
for it.
well, maybe we'll finish off. We spoke about manifestation. Some of the findings I probably should mention that, believing in manifestation, it does make people who are score higher on our scale that we develop to measure it. They tend to feel more hopeful and rate themselves as being more likely to achieve these extrinsic goals, and they're more motivated towards those extrinsic goals. So we have a bit of a problem coming up here. We have, hey, it makes you hopeful, it makes you more ambitious. Not a bad thing per se. However, the things that they're ambitious about tend to be those extrinsic goals that aren't necessarily going to bring us the happiness. They value them more perhaps than the more intrinsic goals. Now, we then thought to ourselves, well, you know, having this optimism about the future and confidence, this could be a good thing, but perhaps there are times when this can backfire. So we designed just a little bit of a scenario that people read about their future, and then imagine that you were, making $350,000 a year from something that you love, and that you're good at, and you get the respect of everyone. You have hundreds of thousands of customers or fans, and of course, everyone almost in the survey really desired this. But then we asked how likely you think you are to achieve this, and what length of time in years do you think it would take you to achieve this. And so as people scored higher on the manifestation scale, they felt more confident that they would achieve it in their lifetime, and that they would achieve it in less time, less amount of years. The more
Yes.
stronger, the less amount of years. So
Over optimistic,
um,
as you call it on the
yeah,
paper.
over optimistic. So then it was about, okay, so what could this over optimism also be related to? What sort of outcomes? And so, of course, I guess we can't say that. So we found that this over optimism stayed, regardless of where people were at financially, or in their life sort of situation. So even if you were really sort of had low income and low education level, and things were tough for you, you still were more likely to sort of have this overconfidence. And now, I don't want to say to people that it's not good to have hope. It is good to have hope, and you should feel like your current circumstances don't dictate the rest of your life, right? But again, you might be setting yourself up to if this belief is really, really sort of making you believe that anything is possible in your life, and you're so far away, from that goal, it it might be setting you up for, I guess, disappointment and frustration and following a path, and that might actually, that you might be better to set smaller goals first and see whether you can, because otherwise you're pushing up against all of this struggle. And so I'm not saying that people who are in a worse situation should necessarily have smaller goals, like, but I think it's easier to try to set more achievable goals for yourself first, achieve them, and then move on. I know for me that's been something that's been really useful to have, is just to maybe just pull back from these massive goals. Like, I mean, I set myself a goal of going to university and getting a PhD and all of that, which I guess is a massive goal, but I just approached it one step at a time. I think for me, and that was much more helpful than going, right, here I am, no degree, no, like, I want to be like Tony Robbins, and now I'm just going to become that, because I'm going to just get up in the morning, go for my run, and be chanting out, I am the, you know. And so taking the long route and letting myself grow and giving myself permission to take time to achieve goals, to me was much more beneficial, and helped me to grow. But I would say that the negative things that came from the over optimism seemed to be that people who scored high on the scale were more likely to have sort of more risky, get rich quick kind of investments. So cryptocurrency versus normal stocks, or they were more likely to believe that get rich quick schemes like multi-level marketing are, valid and credible ways of being able to get rich quick, that it's possible, and that they were more likely to report having been bankrupt as well. And see, that seemed to be the finding that really got a lot of media attention. And I guess it's because you won't necessarily connect in your mind that your belief in manifestation might actually be related to making financial decisions that could leave you more likely to be bankrupt. So I think it's important to understand that. And we had some ideas about why that was, but I think there's certainly more studies that can be done in that way. So yeah, if
Oh,
you've got anything to ask me about that, I'm happy to hang around. But otherwise, yeah, that was all I really wanted to
oh,
mention. And thanks again, John, for inviting me. It's been a really interesting conversation.
nice. Oh yeah, I guess so. I guess it was a nice answer. I can always make some more questions and contributions, but then we will be all the evening, I believe. At least here, it's already almost 2 p.m. So yeah, Lucas, thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to have you here on my podcast, and I hope to see you soon. And yeah,
Yeah,
for you guys out there, thank you so much for being here watching with us. I hope you liked the chat, and see you